RRF Caserta, South Italy, in English language.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we take the sources you share with us, the reviews, the deep dive articles, the studio notes, and turn them into immediate, actionable insight. Today, we are putting on our gas masks and exploring a story that, by all accounts, really should have been a complete disaster.
It should have been, yeah.
The sources you shared are all focused on the critical and commercial triumph of the Amazon Prime Video series, Fallout, which hit screens earlier this year. And we all know the history here. Video game adaptations are, well, they're usually littered with failed attempts, flat storytelling, and a lot of fan outrage.
A lot of fan outrage.
So our mission today is to unpack how they pulled off the near impossible. How did this show manage to satisfy the hardcore, lore-obsessed fans, while also captivating millions of viewers globally who wouldn't know a death claw from a rad roach?
It really is a landmark case study in how to do this right. And before we even get into the themes, you just have to look at the speed of its success.
It was immediate, wasn't it?
Oh, instantaneous. The show dropped its whole first season, 8 episodes, on April 10th, 2024, and it was just a colossal hit from day one.
And the renewal came fast.
So fast.
Yeah.
Season 2 got the green light almost immediately, and then a third season right after. The strategy just worked.
And when we talk about Fallout, we're not just talking about the plot. We're talking about an entire world with a very specific, a very detailed visual identity. It's not just any apocalypse.
No, it's a retrofuturist apocalypse. And that's really the critical starting point for any analysis here.
Okay, so what does that actually mean?
The core DNA of the show, which comes straight from the games, is this idea of retrofuturism. So you have to imagine a dystopian future, our 21st century, but where the culture and the look of 1950s America just never faded.
So all the chrome, the music, that kind of thing.
All of it. The poodle skirts, the doo-wop music, but it's all been supercharged by these dangerously unchecked advancements in nuclear technology.
So it's not sleek and cyberpunk.
It's not at all. It's chunky, analog, atomic-powered consumerism that destroyed the world. That push for more and more tech, combined with resources running out, is what leads to the big nuclear war.
A perfect tragic irony built right into the design.
Exactly. And that irony means the show has to jump around in time.
Right, because the main story is set way, way after the bombs fell.
Precisamente. The main story with our protagonist is set in the year 2296.
Which, for the fans, places it about 9 years after the last big game, Fallout 4, right?
Yep, so we are actively moving the timeline forward. It's a sequel.
But the real context, at least for newcomers, comes from the flashbacks. We keep getting pulled back to 2077.
The year the bombs dropped. The moment the world just ended. A conflict between the U.S. and the communist bloc China, the USSR.
And the whole thing is set in the ruins of Los Angeles, where we find Vault 33. But the sources mention they drop in other key locations for the fans.
Oh, yeah. They name-check places like Shady Sands, which immediately grounds the story in that established world. It's a smart move.
And the look of it all, the production design must have been massive.
It's meticulous. You can see the Mad Max DNA in there, sure, but the decay, the makeshift gear, it's so specific to Fallout that it just feels unique.
And you mentioned the first episode. The reviews really honed in on how well it handled that shift.
They did. Because it perfectly captures that sense of sudden, total devastation. You go from this cheerful, almost sickeningly carefree pre-war world.
All smiles and Nuka-Cola ads.
Right. And then in an instant, the blinding flash of the bomb, and then just the oppressive, structured darkness of the vault. That whiplash is the classic Fallout experience, and they just nailed it.
And that whiplash is what launches our main character on her journey. Let's pivot to that. The odyssey of Lucy McLean.
Lucy McLean, played by Ella Purnell. She's the perfect stand-in for the audience, really. A naive vault dweller who has lived her entire life in this pristine, controlled environment.
But that control doesn't last. The whole story kicks off when her father, Hank McLean,
the overseer of Vault 33,
gets kidnapped by raiders from the surface, led by this woman, Lee Moldaver. And that's the catalyst. Lucy breaks all the rules and goes out into the California wasteland to find him.
And once she's out there, that's when the show introduces these 2 other major characters who basically become her education on how the surface actually works.
So who are these key forces she runs into?
First up, you have Maximus, played by Aaron Moten. He's a squire in the Brotherhood of Steel.
One of the most iconic factions from the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're this sort of neo-chivalric order a paramilitary group that's obsessed with finding and hoarding pre-war technology, especially their power armor. Maximus is all about that surface-level ideology, rigid, brutal, and full of dogma.
And the second character?
The second, and the one all the commentary says was the real breakout star, is the Ghoul, played by Walton Goggins.
He brings the history.
He is the history. He was a guy named Cooper Howard before the war, a famous Hollywood Western actor who even did ads for Vault-Tec, the company behind the vaults.
So he's literally a walking artifact from the old world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The radiation turned him into a ghoul, which means he's mutated but has this incredible longevity. And now he's just this ruthless, cynical bounty hunter. He's the direct link to what the world was and what it's become.
And Walton Goggins in that role. The review said his performance was absolutely pivotal.
Oh, completely. Because all the actors had to walk this really fine line, this subtle line dividing the grotesque from the excessive.
Which is where that black humor really comes into play.
Right. The Ghoul is described as the most absurd and funny character. But he does truly monstrous things. He's a totally crazy Western bandit.
So managing that tone, the horror and the absurdity, sometimes in the same scene, that's the core of the show.
It is. And it's that unique mix that lets the show dig into some really deep critical themes and even change the mythology.
Change it how?
Well, the games always operated in this alternate history, an uchronic universe where the USSR never collapsed. But the series drops a bombshell of new lore, something that reframes the entire catastrophe.
What?
It suggests that the global nuclear war might have been a false flag operation, orchestrated by Vault-Tec itself.
Whoa, okay, let's stop there. So you're saying the apocalypse wasn't an accident of geopolitics, it was a business decision.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
And it completely changes everything. It's what the critics we looked at are calling the last phase of apocalyptic capitalism.
Apocalyptic capitalism. Wow.
Think about it. Vault-Tec wasn't just preparing for the end of the world. They may have actively caused it to guarantee that their main product, the vaults, would be absolutely essential.
That's chilling. So they sell the life rafts.
And then they sink the ship to make sure everyone needs them. It takes that whole retrofuturist dream and just exposes its most cynical, catastrophic endpoint. Even the apocalypse can be for profit.
And that brings us back to the black humor, which you'd have to deal with a theme that dark.
You have to. The show is constantly mixing these serious tropes, the power armor, the paramilitary sex, with this biting sarcasm to show how ridiculous this world is.
And the Maximus anecdote you mentioned from the source material is a perfect example of that.
It really is. So you see Maximus in his huge power armor. He looks like a hero. He swoops in to save this guy who's getting beaten up.
A classic wasteland champion moment.
You think it is.
Yeah.
But then the punchline hits. You find out the guy was being beaten because he was caught trying to mate with the other guy's chickens.
Oh, no.
So this moment of immense technological violence is all because of this base, ridiculous, almost pathetic conflict.
It perfectly captures the decay, existential threats everywhere, but people are still fighting over the most absurd things.
Exactly. It shows that grotesque reality, and the show treats it with both gravity and total absurdity.
So let's talk about the adaptation itself, because this kind of success is historically an anomaly.
It really is. The critical consensus was amazing. It's got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, 73% on Metacritic. And the key phrase critics kept using was that it's an extension of the video games.
High praise, and not just from critics.
No, even Tim Kaine, the creator of the original games, said the show captured the spirit of his work. That's a huge deal for the fans.
And a big part of that was the adaptation strategy they chose. It wasn't a direct retelling.
Right. Unlike, say, The Last of Us, which very faithfully adapts the game's plot, Fallout tells a completely new story that acts as a sequel in the timeline.
Which was a brilliant move.
It was. It meant the series could have an autonomous life. Newcomers didn't need to do homework. But for the veterans, it wasn't a retread. It was a new chapter that added huge things to the lore.
And it felt like a love letter, down to the smallest details. The music, for instance.
Ramin Djawadi did the score. But it's the licensed 1950s music that really defines the sound.
Creating that splendid juxtaposition, cheerful music playing over some truly brutal violence.
It's the show's signature. And for the real nerds, they got the sound effects perfect.
Like
the sound of the Pip-Boy, that RIS computer. The clicks and hums are exactly right. Or the hiss of a Stimpak being used for healing. Getting those tiny details right signals a deep respect for the source.
And for the newcomers, as we said, the Ghoul is their guide. He's the walking encyclopedia explaining the world to Lucy and, by extension, to the audience.
All of which led to this massive commercial success, and not just in terms of viewership.
Numbers were staggering.
They were. Amazon reported 65 million views in just 16 days. That made it their second biggest show ever, right behind The Rings of Power.
In 1 week, what was it, 2.5 billion minutes viewed?
2.5 billion. The next most watched show that week didn't even hit 800 million. It was a true cultural event.
And that event had a huge ripple effect back on the games themselves.
A massive one. Fallout 4, a game from 2015, suddenly became the best-selling game in Europe and on Steam.
And the older games saw a huge spike, too.
Oh yeah, Fallout 76, New Vegas, Fallout 3. They all shot into the top 10 bestseller lists that week. It proves how powerful a well-made transmedia franchise can be.
So let's bring this all together. The Fallout series worked not just because it was faithful, but because it strategically used all the core elements, the retrofuturism, the black comedy, and wrapped them in a new, compelling story.
And by adding that dark new theme of apocalyptic capitalism, it became its own thing, a phenomenon.
It's a huge takeaway. The success of Fallout proves that video game IP is no longer just for a niche audience.
Exactly. These are universal stories. And when they're told this well, they can achieve massive global popularity across any medium.
So for you, our listener, here's a final provocative question to take with you. Given that the show has now established that Vault-Tec likely started the war for profit, we're in a world born from the ultimate corporate betrayal. As future seasons unfold, how deeply do you think they'll explore the implications of that apocalyptic capitalism? Are the true monsters the mutants in the wasteland, or the corporate structure that built the bombs in the first place? Something to mull over until the next season drops.
RRF Caserta, South Italy, in English language.